So these tools are called, the migration tools are called ETL tools. It can extract it, it can transform it, massage the data, and it can load it, right? So there is a comparison between these tools, between ETL, whether it's a complete ETL tool, which source it can use with based on the data volume, whether it can handle the business validations and logics, okay, and what kind of resource or infrastructure would be required and what would be the cost. So this is a very good comparison of the different tools. First is HANA Migration Cockpit with the file approach, file upload approach. So we call it as a HANA Migration Cockpit as an ETL tool only. All the data tools, we call it as an ETL. But this is only T and L. It can transform the data because it has the mapping functionality, and it can load the data. Transform and the transform capability is not that strong, but it can, because of the mapping functionality, we can say it has a transform. It cannot extract the data with the file upload approach. It cannot extract the data. So it's a T and L, right? Any source system, you can use it. Okay, the data volume, if it is a low data volume, it's a very huge data is there, then your Excel sheet itself will fail. One filter you will put in Excel sheet and it will take 5 minutes to respond. Okay, so it's only applicable for low to medium level of data. If high volume of data is there, your file upload approach will be creating a lot of problem. Whether business logics can handle the data massaging, that if this field is this field is this, then that field should be this one. That kind of things cannot handle. Okay, that kind of things cannot handle. Do we require additional infrastructure and resource? No, we don't require additional infrastructure and resource. It's a low cost. Basically, you need to train your functional consultants, or some places the technical consultant, where the new objects need to be created. So it's a low cost tool. HANA Migration Cockpit with the staging file approach. With the staging file approach also, it can transform the data, it can load the data. For extract the data, it will require a help of another tool. BODS need to come into the picture if extraction is required. It can get the data from any source, that's not a problem. It is used where the volume is high. Where the volume is high, your Excel sheet would not be capable to take the load. Basically, you want that, make sure that your data is directly coming into the staging table. So staging tables from the migration cockpit side, it does not control how the staging table will be uploaded. It gives you a functionality that the staging tables are created, and the data HANA Migration Cockpit is calling the data from the staging tables, right? So, so with that way, it need to be used for the high volumes of the data. Again, the business logics, we cannot put it here. Business logic, we cannot do it. Resource and infrastructure, yes, resource and infrastructure would be required. From a particular version only, the staging file is available on, when you will go through the detail of HANA Migration Cockpit, you will come to know that version. From a particular version point, the staging table is now available on the existing S/4HANA. Otherwise, earlier, when we need to use the staging table, we also need a staging database. We need to use a separate database. Okay. If you're using a separate database itself, then it's a high cost. And if you're using it with the another tool who would be extracting the data, that becomes it high cost. Approach is high cost. Migration cockpit direct. Now, when you are directly transferring the data, then it becomes ETL. It can extract, it can transform, it can load. It can only be used where the source is SAP, and not only SAP, source is ECC. You're transferring the data from ECC. Only that can be used. It cannot be used for another Oracle, JD, and other things. Data volume, high data volume, it can support. Again, the business logics cannot be written on this. Resource and infrastructure is not required. It's a low cost. It's a low cost, but need to be used where it is a low complexity. Where data is good to go directly into the S/4HANA, that kind of functions are there. This need to be used with the low complexity. Then we have ABAP program and the BDC. It can load and it can transform it, Why it can transform? Because you can write your code, and with the code, you can transform the data. The source can be anything. It need to be used only for the low data volumes. If the data volume is high, then this is not very efficient. BDC programs are not very efficient when it comes to the timing. Performance is not a performance efficient programs. Generally, business rules and logic need to be coded. Otherwise, as a tool, it does not support the business rules and logics. It does not require any resource and infrastructure. No resource and infrastructure is required. Cost would be medium because you will require additional development cost. Your ABAP people need to develop these programs. ABAP program, direct input. Okay, you can also create ABAP programs. That is also LT, can be used with any. Data volume, medium data volume, it can handle it because it would be calling a functional module. Business logics mentioned as a no. I would say that business logic, yes. Because you are writing a code, within the writing a code, you can write your business logics. No extra resource and infrastructure is required, and medium cost would be there because development cost is there, so that will increase a little bit of cost. BODS we have discussed a lot. It is ETL tool. Use can be with anything. It can handle the very high data volumes. Business logics can be put it there. Additional resource and infrastructure would be required. Cost would be very high because you will require a separate infrastructure, separate license, and separate consultants would be required to work on it. So the cost would be very high. It can handle the very complex scenarios also. The data quality also would be very high with this. We have a third-party tool, process runners and wind shutters. These third-party tools depend on the third-party tool, but in general, it is transform and load. It is not about the extract. It can be used by any source system. Medium level of the data can be handled. Business rules and logics, in general, it is not there. If there can be any another third-party tools which provides it, that can be another case. Separate infrastructure licenses would be required for the third-party tools. Okay, it would be the high cost because you need to also pay for the third-party license. Okay, this is a quick comparison between the tools, that how the data migration, different data migration tools can be used for what kind of projects. You would be able to select your tool based on this comparison.